Welcome to the Special Forces in World War II podcast, transmitting on this frequency. This broadcast is your dedicated channel for comprehensive intelligence regarding World War II Special Forces operations. Our transmissions encompass in-depth analysis of their strategic maneuvers, cutting-edge equipment, illustrious biographies, and an array of pertinent subjects. The orchestration of these transmissions is executed by the expert team of the Special Forces in World War II website, a squad deeply immersed in the historical theater. For further insights, visual aids, and captured moments frozen in time, navigate to our virtual headquarters at worldwar2-soft.com. Your immersion into the front lines of knowledge awaits. Over and out. Welcome back to another episode of the Special Forces in World War II podcast, where we explore the bold, the daring, and the extraordinary tactics of special and specialized forces in World War II that helped shape the outcome of the greatest conflict in modern history. I'm your host, Michael Wyers, and as always, we're here to unravel the hidden stories behind the daring exploits of special and specialized forces in World War II. In this episode, we continue our 5-part series about the Provisional Ranger Force during D-Day. In our first episode, we explored the preparations of the Provisional Ranger Group for D-Day. We set the stage for the Rangers' assault on Pointe du Hoc and Omaha Beach. We discovered how 5th Corps planned the Omaha landings, while a specialized Ranger force was tasked to neutralize the 155mm battery threatening Omaha and Utah. We followed the battalions from their arrival in Britain through relentless commando-led training, evolving plans, equipment trials, and rehearsals at Braunton and along the South Coast. Leadership changed, Force ABC roles solidified, and the cliff-scaling concept took shape as air raids began to batter the point. By early June, the Rangers had embarked under tight security, kit paired to essentials, ladders, rockets, and swan ducks ready, bound for a pre-dawn launch toward the cliffs of Normandy. In our last episode, we traced the dramatic opening of the battle for Pointe du Hoc. From the heavy air raids of June 5th and 6th to the Rangers' storm-tossed approach, the story built toward one of D-Day's most dangerous missions. We followed Colonel Rudder's men as they landed late, climbed the shattered cliffs under fire, and fought through confusion on the summit. Scattered Ranger groups pushed inland, seized the coastal highway, and in a pivotal moment, located and destroyed the hidden German 155mm guns. Against all odds, the Rangers accomplished their mission. This episode picks up from that moment. This is the story of after the Rangers found the guns and how they held their ground at Pointe du Hoc until their relief early June 8, 1944. So let's start at the beginning. Why the guns were unguarded remains a mystery. Some suggest the crews were trapped on the point and never returned. Whatever the reason, the threat is ended without a shot fired from the battery itself. With fewer than a dozen men, the Rangers have removed one of the greatest dangers to both Omaha and Utah beaches. From there on, the fighting at Pointe du Hoc on D-Day unfolds in two distinct directions. One group of Rangers pushes inland to secure the coastal highway. The other remains on or near the point itself. Some stay as planned. Others are held there by a sudden resurgence of German resistance. This renewed fire pins down 2 boat teams from Company F and locks them near the eastern cliffs for most of the day. LCA 883 and LCA 884 land well to the left of their intended positions. Lieutenant Wintz, commanding LCA 883, at first believes he has come ashore within the fortified zone. The shattered ground looks unfamiliar, but he assumes this is simply the effect of bombardment. As his men climb, he sends the first group to occupy a ruined hedgerow at the edge of the inland fields. They advance rapidly, moving crater to crater without drawing fire. The rest follow. Behind them, men from LCA 884 climb up 883's ladders to join them. Wince moves west along the cliffs in search of Captain Otto Masny, the company commander. Masny, however, has already pressed into the point and will not be seen again by Wince that day. Wince soon realizes his true position. His force, with some men from LCA 884, lies east of the fortified ground. To the south stretch shell-torn fields broken only by sparse hedgerows. Sniper and artillery fire from this direction forces the Rangers flat. One man is hit. Then, from the east, a German automatic weapon opens fire. Its rounds pass westward toward the point, directly over the Rangers. The gun's exact position remains unclear, but it has already disrupted the landings. Neutralizing it is a Company F objective. Wince gathers a 5-man team. Sergeant Charles Wellage sets his mortar in a crater near the cliff to provide support. A hedgerow skirts the cliff edge to the east, and a drainage ditch runs beside it. Using this cover, the Rangers creep forward. Wince believes this is the first assault against the weapon. In fact, it is the third. Earlier, Private William Anderson and 2 Rangers had tried the same approach, but found nothing and withdrew. Before moving deeper into the point, Captain Masny sent out another patrol. First Sergeant Frederick, Staff Sergeant Yusso, and Private Keenel. They advanced 1 field inland along an east-west hedgerow. Frederick paused to pass on an order. Yusso and Keenel went forward. At 20 meters, Yusso rose to throw a grenade and was shot by a German rifleman. Keenel turned back to find Frederick. Yusso crawled away, wounded. Wince's lead men stumbled on him 70 meters later. Now, Wince's group stretches along 200 meters of hedgerow. He trails near the rear with 4 riflemen and a mortar observer. Enemy fire sweeps an open gap in the line. Another Ranger is hit. The advance falters. Then comes an order to withdraw. It rests on a misunderstanding. Frederick, ordered earlier to report to Masny, reaches gun position 1, but cannot find him. There he hears, second-hand, an instruction to recall Wince. He passes it on, though uncertain. Then, pressing deeper into the point, he finally finds Masny. The captain explains. He thought Wince was moving south, away from the point, and wanted to hold the force together. The gun must still be silenced. Frederick sends a correction, but by then, Wince has already pulled back with 2 wounded. Wince reorganizes. He prepares for a new push along the cliff, the 4th attempt against the gun. Just as his men are ready to move, another order arrives, this time by SCR 300 radio. Against all odds, the set has worked across the broken terrain. Colonel Rudder has decided to use naval fire instead. The Rangers watch from cover as a destroyer closes in. According to their memory, it fires 7 salvos. The blasts shear away the cliff edge and silence the gun. But snipers remain east of the point. It is now late morning, between 11 and 12. The flanking gun is gone, but precious hours have been lost. The action highlights the problems of command and control. Scattered groups, broken communications, and confused orders delay coordination. The Rangers of LCA 883 and LCA 884, intended for the inland highway, are instead tied down east of the point. Wince positions them in a right-angled hedgerow. It forms a strong anchor against any further German approach from that direction. Colonel Rudder reaches the top of the cliff at 7:45. He establishes his command post in a shell crater, midway between the cliff edge and a shattered German anti-aircraft emplacement. By this time, most assault groups have already moved inland. Rudder waits for reports, but visibility in the wrecked terrain is poor. Bombardment has turned the point into a maze of craters and debris. For now, Rudder can exercise little direct control. German resistance soon revives, Snipers emerge from tunnels and trenches within the fortified zone. Headquarters staff and late climbers are sent to clear them. All day these efforts repeat, but the craters provide perfect concealment. Calm alternates with sudden bursts of fire. From the west, a German anti-aircraft position continues to harass the point. During one such burst, Rudder himself is wounded in the thigh. About half an hour after Rudder's arrival, Sergeant Richard Spleen leads an assault on the western strongpoint. The attempt ends in disaster. The position is confirmed as the main center of resistance, threatening both the point and the ranges inland. Captain Otto Masny, after securing Company F's flank, joins Rudder at the command post. He is assigned to organize perimeter defense. Enemy fire flares again from the same direction. Masny gathers 8 men and moves out, picking up stragglers as he crosses the ruins. A mortar section from LCA 722 joins him, along with a .30 caliber machine gun salvaged from a DUKW. The party turns west near the exit road and advances 90 meters. Fire erupts from the front and flank. Masny's men scatter, returning fire from craters. The mortar sets up 50 meters behind. As the fight develops, a white flag rises above the German emplacement. Masny's men remain cautious. 2 Rangers near gun position 6 move forward to investigate. They are cut down by machine gun fire. Then artillery joins in. Shells begin to fall in precise salvos, walking steadily back toward the lane. Masny later calls it the prettiest fire I ever saw. The Rangers are mauled. 4 are killed instantly. Nearly all are wounded. Masny, hit in the arm, shouts a general withdrawal. Survivors crawl back under fire. 2 more are shot by snipers. The mortar, empty, is abandoned. No further assaults are made. Between the 2 failed attempts, 15 to 20 men are lost. Naval gunfire tries to assist. The destroyer USS Satterlee fires repeatedly, but cannot knock out the strongpoint. The site lies too far inland for undercutting, yet too close to the cliff edge for destroyer guns to bear properly. Even so, naval support proves vital throughout the day. At 7:28, the Satterlee establishes contact with the Naval Shore Fire Control Party. Spotting reports follow. The SCR-284 radio proves unreliable, and signals from the command post draw German artillery. Lieutenant Eichner switches to signal lamps, which work well. Radio fire control resumes in the afternoon. Targets include Saint-Pierre, Auguay, road junctions, and Grand Camp. By 1723, the Satterlee has fired 164 salvos, expending 70% of her ammunition. She is relieved in turn by USS Barton and USS Thompson. The fire control team relays plans for night missions before darkness falls. Communication with friendly forces inland proves even more difficult. The signal operation instructions had been changed before D-Day without informing the Rangers. Eichner manages to raise Allied units but cannot authenticate his messages. Replies never come. Rudder remains unaware of events on Omaha Beach. The Navy provides no updates. Around midday, Rudder sends a message by every available means. Located Pointe du Hoc. Mission accomplished. Need ammunition and reinforcements. Many casualties. At 1500, the 116th Infantry Regiment intercepts but cannot decipher it. The message is repeated. Shortly afterwards, a naval relay delivers the only official reply received at the point that day, from General Hubner: no reinforcements available. The medical section is already stretched thin. Captain Walter Block lands with 2 enlisted men from LCA 722. 3 more medics arrive in other craft. Their aid packs have ropes attached for hoisting under fire. Block himself carries a mortar shell container filled with supplies. All reach the beach intact. As the command post moves up to the cliff top, 1 aid man remains below with the wounded. Later, another medic and Lieutenant Colonel Trevor of the British Commandos construct a ladder, fixing it to the cliff to haul up casualties and supplies. By early afternoon, the wounded become a critical problem. At 13:50, Block flashes a signal to USS Barton requesting a boat for evacuation. At 14:30, a motorboat and rubber raft attempt a landing. Machine gun fire from the eastern cliffs rakes them. One sailor is wounded. The landing fails. The most seriously wounded are left overnight, sheltered in a cave at the cliff base. During the afternoon of June 6th, the Germans launched 2 counterattacks against the Rangers at Pointe du Hoc. Both fall on Lieutenant Wintz's position, striking from the south and west. The first assault comes across the open fields from Saint-Pierre-du-Mont. Rangers spot German riflemen advancing through the bomb craters. At least one machine gun team provides cover. The attackers reach a hedgerow just 1 field south of Wintz's line and set up their gun. A firefight begins and drags on for nearly an hour. Mortars and artillery join in, but most shells overshoot, crashing near the point itself. Company F has a mortar ready but holds fire for lack of ammunition. With no bars on the flank and naval fire impossible at such close range, the Rangers rely on steady rifle fire. The discipline holds. Gradually, the German fire slackens, and the enemy pulls back. Wintz's men suffer no losses. The second assault comes shortly after 4 o'clock. This time, the blow falls on the right flank of Company F's thin line. Here, only 2 BARS, a mortar team, and a few riflemen hold the sector. The flank is exposed, open toward the German anti-aircraft position. The enemy pushes close, almost to the exit road, before being spotted. Staff Sergeant Hermann Stein and Private Cloyce Manning are moving between craters near gun position 1 when they see 12 Germans advancing from the west. At the same time, Staff Sergeant Eugene Elder, manning the mortar, spots more Germans crawling north through the craters. Stein fires at 40 meters with his BAR. 2 men drop and the enemy falters. When they regroup, their line stretches beyond the flank, but their fire remains inaccurate. Rangers react quickly. Stein sends word to the mortar crew. 8 riflemen rush in from the left to reinforce the exposed sector. Sergeant Murrell Stinnett directs their fire. Elder's mortar begins dropping rounds at 60 meters. The first shells hit the lead elements. They break and retreat. Elder swings the tube south, and another burst scatters a second party. As they run, BAR fire cuts them down. Elder continues firing despite soaked increments, adjusting by elevation and traverse. The attack collapses. The Germans lose the initiative. Rangers have stopped an assault that threatened to cut off Wintz's men. German mortars remain silent, and their machine guns, when they appear, are quickly suppressed. For the rest of the evening, only skirmishes follow. German riflemen probe the fields, testing the line, but no further organized attacks develop. Near dusk, Wintz draws his men back toward the point. He establishes a tighter defense, crater to crater, close enough for voice contact. He personally leads a patrol through the ruins, searching for snipers. None are found. By nightfall, the combined force from LCA 883 and 884, around 40 men in the morning, is down by 5, killed and 10 wounded. Among the dead is Lieutenant Hill. Hill had reached the highway earlier in the day with the advance patrols. Later, he attempts to return to the point with Private John Batcho. As they cross fields east of the exit road, they hear machine gun fire. They decide to investigate. Hill identifies a position 2 fields away. The pair move forward. Batcho scouts ahead and sees a dozen Germans in the corner of a field. Hill chooses to attack. Both men throw grenades over a hedge and dive into a ditch. None explode. The Germans respond with stick grenades. One lands between them but fails to harm. A moment later, Hill is shot through the chest. Batcho hurls more grenades, including one filled with thermite. The blast disorients the Germans. A bullet glances off his helmet, knocking him flat, but leaving him unhurt. He feigns death as the enemy approach. They inspect briefly and move on. Bacho later crawls into a crater, remaining hidden all afternoon. At nightfall, he makes his way back to the point. He is the only survivor of the action. By midday on June 6th, the forward highway position has grown. Small parties continue to filter in from the shattered battery. By now, over 60 Rangers hold the line, 800 meters south of the point. Among them are 3 paratroopers from the 101st Airborne Division, dropped in error some 15 miles from their intended zone north of Carentan. The day's focus is patrolling. Small combat groups, 6 or 7 Rangers each, probe both flanks and the shallow valley south of the highway. They find no organized enemy. A handful of Germans, bypassed near the point, try to slip south. Some are shot, others are taken prisoner. By afternoon, about 40 captives are gathered in a field near the command post. One encounter takes place around noon. Sergeant Petty has returned to collect a rifle for one of his men. At that moment, Sergeant James R. Alexander opens fire with his bar at 2 Germans moving down the lane from the highway. One falls. Petty, Alexander, and 3 others go forward. As Petty straddles a gate by the road, a voice calls, "Kamerad," from a ditch. 3 Germans rise with hands raised. Sergeant Walter J. Borowski rakes the hedgerow with rifle fire in case more are concealed. 2 more surrender. A search uncovers no others. 2 prisoners, one a captain, admit they had a machine gun, but the Rangers never find it. Petty also commands the southern outpost near the stream valley. With 9 Rangers and a BAR team, he watches the valley floor. All afternoon, small German groups attempt to move west along the country road toward Grand Camp. They appear disorganized and never return fire. Petty holds his men until the last moment, then cuts them down with surprise bursts from his BAR. By evening, he has killed or wounded about 30 Germans. Among them are 2 Polish soldiers, part of a group of 7. They are fired on before the Rangers realize they are trying to surrender. Late in the day, patrols observe heavier enemy movement to the south and southwest, but there are no signs of a concerted counterattack. The one exception comes north of the highway, near Company D's roadblock. Around 4 o'clock, Sergeant Leonard G. Lomel, posted near the command post, notices movement beyond a stone wall. He sees a column of roughly 50 German troops advancing from the point. Scouts move ahead. Behind them are 2 machine gun teams and a mortar crew. With only 20 Rangers stretched thin along 140 meters of road, Lomel has no hope of resisting. He holds his fire. The column halts just 10 meters from the wall, then turns west, parallel to the road. Without seeing the Rangers, they cross the tarmac and vanish south. Discipline saves the position. Intermittent shell fire continues throughout the day. Most rounds burst harmlessly in the fields or treetops. One paratrooper is killed after refusing to take cover in his foxhole. Offshore, destroyers keep up regular bombardments inland, guided by observers at the point. But communication between the forward position and Colonel Rudder's command post is unreliable. With no naval shore fire control party at the highway, corrections are difficult. Runners face sniper fire along the route. Some fight their way through in both directions. Lieutenant Lapresse tries twice to reach Rudder. On his first attempt, he brings back ammunition and a radio, which proves useless. On the second, he is turned back by German infiltrators who have cut the path between the highway and the point. Reinforcements finally appear, but not as expected. A platoon from Company A, 5th Ranger Battalion, has landed at Omaha. 23 men, under 1st Lieutenant Parker. At 8:15, Parker's platoon became separated from the battalion during the assault between Vierville and Saint-Laurent. Believing the rest close behind, he leads them south to the designated assembly area. Leaving Chateau de Vaumicelle at 14:30, they storm a small enemy strongpoint, capturing 12 prisoners. But when they reach the assembly area, it is deserted. Parker decides to continue toward Pointe du Hoc. Avoiding main roads, the platoon skirts the countryside. Nearing the point from the south, they run into fierce fire and narrowly escape encirclement. Forced to pull back, they cut across fields until, around 9 p.m., they reach the defensive lines of the 2nd Ranger Battalion south of the Grand Camp Vierville Road. Still convinced the 5th Ranger Battalion is close behind, Parker delivers the news to Colonel Rudder. As twilight settles over Pointe du Hoc, Colonel Rudder faces a grim decision. His force of 200 men is reduced by a third. Many of the wounded, including Rudder himself, remain in action. Ammunition is running dangerously low, especially grenades and mortar rounds. The Germans still hold the anti-aircraft position to the west. They appear in strength to the east. Communications between the point and the highway group are shaky at best. More than half the battalion is inland, at risk of being cut off. Colonel Trevor, of the British Commandos, sums up the mood with a grim remark. "Never have I been so convinced I will be either a prisoner of war or a casualty by morning." Rudder decides to hold the inland position along the highway. He expects reinforcements soon. The 5th Ranger Battalion and the 116th Infantry Regiment, advancing as planned along the Vierville Road. His confidence rises when Lieutenant Parker's platoon arrives, reporting that the rest of the 5th is close behind. Blocking the Grand Camp Road remains essential. German counterattacks against the point itself have been weak, and none strike the highway line. Rudder and his staff also worry about artillery if the battalion concentrates on the cliff top, but this fear will prove unfounded. Before nightfall, Lieutenant Lapras brings word from Rudder. The line inland must hold. The Rangers begin preparing their night defenses. 85 men, including Parker's 23, spread out across the hedgerows south of the highway, facing west and south, where the enemy is most likely to appear. Company D pulls back from its overstretched daytime line and digs in along a hedge that runs south from the road. Company E extends east, tying into the command post. Company F shortens its front to 30 meters, guarding the orchard gateway and stone walls near the fields. Captured German machine guns are set up alongside American weapons. Ammunition is dangerously short. BAR rounds nearly gone. Grenades almost used up. A few captured potato mashers are available, but the Rangers distrust them. German prisoners are pressed into service, digging shallow foxholes near the command post under guard. Rations are nothing more than D-bars. The men have not eaten properly since shipboard, though exhaustion dulls their hunger. Just after midnight, the first German probe comes. Whistles and shouts echo from the orchard slope. A burst of machine gun fire flashes only 25 meters away. The Rangers answer immediately with rifles and BARs. Private Carty is killed by a grenade as he runs toward the corner. Sergeant Branley is hit in the shoulder but crawls to safety. Half an hour later, the enemy strikes again. Mortars and machine guns pound the line. Then German riflemen advance upright, shouting as they walk. At one post, Corporal Thompson and Hornhart cut down 3 men climbing a hedge. Grenades fly back. One explodes in Thompson's face, leaving him badly wounded. He hands his BAR to Hornhart and staggers away. Moments later, a massive fireball erupts from an abandoned German gun pit, likely a store of ammunition. The orchard is lit in a sudden glare. Then darkness returns, and the attack breaks off. After this, the enemy changes tactics. They fire to draw a reply, then lay down mortars on the exposed positions. Confusion spreads in the darkness. Posts pull back, some on their own initiative, others believing they were ordered. The angle of the perimeter weakens. Lieutenant Arman at the command post remains unaware of the shift. The Germans lose 8 men in these probes, but the Rangers are forced back into a tighter perimeter. The line holds, yet the ground they defend has shrunk. East of the command post, the night remains quiet. No Germans appear. Company E's 1st Platoon and Company F have not yet been engaged. At the Stonewall outpost, Sergeant Petty's men hear the sounds of fighting but cannot locate it. Some suspect the highway group has launched an attack of its own. After a lull, they hear metallic noise in the darkness, perhaps farm machinery. Then gunfire cracks against the wall, ricocheting off a roller propped against it. Petty's men stay silent under the bursts. Twice the enemy fires. Then all is still. When the order comes, Petty pulls his men back to the command post. They are not challenged. He and Dix bring with them a captured MG-43. The rest move to reinforce Company F's eastern line. At the command post itself, calm holds under Lieutenant Arman. Officers from Companies D and E drop in from time to time. Lieutenant Lapresse makes a round of the western flank. 2 non-commissioned officers check E's positions for casualties and weapons, warning that further attacks may come. Arman, short on reports from the other companies, weighs whether to move Company F south toward the creek to flank any renewed assault. He decides against it. In the dark, the risk of hitting his own men is too great. German prisoners are shifted into the center of the field and ordered to dig in, for their protection as much as the Rangers. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, the Germans strike again. This time, the assault is stronger and more determined, aimed once more at the inland defensive line. The weight falls on the right of Company E, near the orchard. As before, the enemy manages to creep within 45 meters of the Rangers without being detected. The attack begins with a sudden chorus of whistles. Across the darkened field, German voices call out. Some Rangers think it is a roll call, others a tactic to intimidate or coordinate. Then, machine guns and machine pistols open up. Tracer rounds streak overhead, inaccurate but dramatic, fired more for shock than effect. Ball ammunition rakes the hedgerows from the angle eastward. Grenades follow, and erratic mortar rounds crash into the field behind the line. Some Rangers even claim the enemy is lobbing shells by hand. Explosions echo through the orchard. What follows is confused, hard to piece together. Accounts differ sharply. Lieutenant Arman at the command post to the east later insists the action comes in 2 phases. First, a burst of automatic fire, scattered and ineffective. Then a pause, more whistles, more shouting, and finally, a stronger push. The heaviest contact is at the junction of Companies D and E, the place they call the angle. Yet, as during the earlier probes, no one agrees on exactly what happens there. Communications are non-existent. Confusion rules the line. Technician John Burnett, 23 meters east of the angle, hears Henry Stecky open fire with his BAR. For 2 minutes, the weapon pounds away, then several grenades detonate at the corner. After a pause, the BAR resumes. More grenades follow. German voices are heard close by. At first, Burnett believes the angle has been overrun. Later, he changes his account, claiming Stecky's bar keeps firing even after the second German push. Others nearby are just as uncertain. At the command post, Lieutenant Zalewski of the 5th Rangers is told the line has been breached. Both he and Lieutenant Arman believe the corner has fallen, and that Germans are now moving through the field behind it. Arman insists later that no bar fire can be heard after the second wave, reinforcing the belief that the position has been lost. He thinks Stecky and a lone rifleman have been cut off. Whatever the truth, one fact remains. No Ranger north or east of the angle knows its real status. Company D's men, lying quietly to the north, make no move to investigate. Burnett and Sergeant Rapinski, barely 23 meters away, do not reconnoiter. At the command post, Arman and Lapras assume the worst. They discuss pulling back if another attack comes. Neither informs Company D. Neither sends word down the line. Parker and Zalewski of the 5th Rangers are supposedly briefed, but later deny receiving any such order. On Company E's line, one Ranger recalls the word being passed. conserve ammunition. Grenades are gone, rifle rounds are running low, and every shot must count. At 3 in the morning, on June 7th, the Germans launched their third and fiercest assault against the Inland Ranger position. Once again, whistles pierce the darkness, followed by shouted roll calls. Automatic fire erupts from several machine guns and machine pistols, raking the hedgerows and open fields. This time, the mortar fire is heavier, bursting across the line and even among the German prisoners gathered near the command post. Enemy pressure pushes further east than before, into the wheat field directly south of the command post. Rangers spot new machine gun flashes in the orchard below Company E's 2nd Platoon, and more fire from the hedges near the command post itself. One officer believes rounds are even coming from inside the perimeter, suggesting the Germans have occupied the corner position. Others think it is high-angle fire from the west. In the chaos, no one can be sure. The effect is the same: confusion, panic, and the belief that the perimeter is collapsing. Some Rangers are convinced the enemy has already infiltrated behind them, as far as the highway. Lieutenant Arman at the command post again notes the familiar rhythm: a sudden burst of fire, a pause, then the main push. This time, the western half of Company E's line is quickly overwhelmed. Surviving accounts are confused, but it is clear the German thrust breaks through near the center of the platoon and then rolls west toward the angle. Private Harold Main, lying wounded east of Lieutenant Legan's post, hears German voices beyond the hedge. He crawls deeper into the vines as Staff Sergeant Simmons, only meters away, surrenders. The enemy comes no further east. Technician John Burnett, just east of the angle, confirms the breach is not on his flank but further left. From his foxhole, he hears the firefight at close quarters. Captured German grenades are thrown back and forth. To Burnett, it feels like an hour, though it lasts only minutes. Sergeant Borghetto's BAR falls silent. Fire begins to rake the Rangers' side of the hedge from the east, enfilading their foxholes. Burnett and his neighbor are both hit. Sergeant Rupinski debates continuing the fight, then shouts, "Kamerad!" The Germans surge in, rounding up the survivors. Nearly all are wounded. Lieutenant Legans is dead. Around 20 men from Company E's 2nd Platoon are captured and marched south to what proves to be a German battalion command post. At the command post, Arman, Lapres, and the 5th Ranger Lieutenants act on their earlier contingency plan to withdraw, but communication is failing. No one knows if Company D or Legan's men have been warned. Reports pour in of collapsing lines, men out of ammunition, weapons jamming, and positions abandoned. Some Rangers insist Company D has been overrun. Others are furious later, believing they were left behind. For the first time that night, the command post itself comes under fire. Enemy patrols move into the wheat field. Sergeant Petty with his BAR, Staff Sergeant Dix with a captured German gun, and several riflemen from Company F are sent to reinforce. Dix sees Germans crawling just meters away. He fires, but his weapon jams. A misaimed shot from behind glances off his helmet, stunning him. Petty yells, "Down!" and opens up with his BAR, joined by Sergeant Roby from the rear. Their fire breaks the assault. One German is killed outright when a grenade detonates beneath him. Moments later, as fire builds again from the southwest, the withdrawal begins. Orders are passed hurriedly and unevenly. Some Rangers never receive them. Petty and Roby stay behind with their BARS to cover the retreat. Staff Sergeant Richard Hathaway of the 5th Ranger Battalion, posted further back, sees men running past. When he calls out, he is nearly shot until giving the correct password. Told the enemy is at their heels, Hathaway gathers who he can and withdraws. The German prisoners are abandoned. On reaching the highway, the Rangers regroup. There is no pursuit. Company F is mostly intact. Only a handful from Company E return. None from Company D. Lieutenant Arman splits the force. One party moves by the exit road, the other across the fields. By 4 o'clock, around 50 men make it back to the point. They are thrown immediately into a new defensive line between gun positions 3 and 5. There is no time to reorganize before daylight. Colonel Rudder is told the inland force has been destroyed, but a dozen men from Company D remain hidden. Strung along a hedgerow north of the angle, they have received no withdrawal order. They lie low in their ditch, undiscovered. Elsewhere, a few stragglers, such as Earl Theobald and Loring Wadsworth, also miss the retreat. Both are eventually captured after spending hours hidden in the brambles. At dawn, the remnants of Force A hold barely 90 men fit to fight. 50 more are badly wounded. Ammunition is nearly gone. Communication with higher command is poor. A few destroyers offshore respond, bringing supplies and eventually evacuating the wounded and prisoners. But through the day and into the next, the men at Pointe du Hoc remain isolated, battered, and under constant threat. For some, survival comes down to pure chance. 7 Rangers volunteer to slip out toward friendly lines. In the open fields, they stumble into a minefield. Machine guns cut them down. Paul Pavey is killed instantly. James Gabory is hit and left for dead. Crawling into a German foxhole, he hallucinates and prepares to end his life. Fortune intervenes. A patrol discovers him the next morning and carries him out alive. By then, the Rangers at Pointe du Hoc are clinging on with their last reserves of strength, still waiting for relief that never seems to come. On the evening of June 7th, a small link between the Rangers at Pointe du Hoc and the relief force inland is finally established. Captain John Rain of the 5th Ranger Battalion headquarters organizes a night patrol. Sergeant Moody and Technician 5th Grade McKissick are chosen to make the attempt. Their mission is to cross 4.5 kilometers of open ground and reach Colonel Rudder. The 2 Rangers encounter no enemy patrols, but drift too far west along the cliffs. After correcting their course, they stumble into the perimeter and are taken to Rudder. They deliver news from Saint-Pierre-du-Mont and hear from Rudder himself that the battered battalion can hold out another day. Elsewhere, men still hiding beyond the highway face their own fate. Technician Earl Theobald is captured by a German machine gun post near the creek. Private Harold Main, also concealed, watches a gun being set up near his hedge. That night, he crawls out, lobs a grenade, and slips away to the point without drawing fire. By the morning of June 8th, the wider tactical picture on Omaha Beach has stabilized. German counterattacks at Vierville have failed. Reinforcements of the 29th Division continue to land. All 3 regiments are now ashore, and the 175th prepares to push westward. The 116th is ordered to advance along the Vierville Grand Camp Road. One of its first tasks is to relieve Colonel Rudder and the survivors still clinging to Pointe du Hoc. At 6:30, the remaining 3 companies of the 5th Ranger Battalion depart Vierville with the 116th and tanks of the 743rd Tank Battalion. They reach Saint-Pierre-du-Mont by 8:15 with little resistance. By then, Moody and McKissick have returned, dragging a reel of telephone wire. They lay it successfully, establishing direct contact between Rudder and the relief column. Both men will later receive the Distinguished Service Cross. At 9 o'clock, the final movement begins. Within an hour, Lieutenant Colonel Schneider, Colonel Metcalf, and other Ranger officers reach Rudder's command post. The link-up is complete. Even the handful of Company D men who have remained hidden in the hedgerows are finally freed by advancing infantry. But the relief brings its own dangers. Confusion and poor maps combine with the sound of captured German weapons in Ranger hands. Near the western flak bunker, tanks and infantry of the 116th push too far forward. Hearing the chatter of MG-34s and 42s, they mistake the Rangers for the enemy. Mortars and tank guns open up. The Rangers scrambled to signal, smoke grenades, flags, shouted warnings, but the fire continues. For over 30 minutes, shells crash into their own perimeter. 3 Shermans strike mines, 2 Rangers are killed, and 4 are wounded before the mistake is halted. 1 Ranger officer is forced to climb onto a tank and threaten the commander at pistol point to stop the firing. Aboard the battleship Texas, Admiral Carlton Bryant hears the gunfire. He radios Rudder, "Are you being fired upon?" Rudder replies, "Yes." Bryant asks, "Do you want me to return fire?" Rudder answers, "No." "Is it friendly fire?" "Yes." By late morning, the firing has ceased. Baker Company of the 2nd Rangers sweeps east along the cliffs toward Pointe de la Percée, but most positions are already deserted. At 11:35, Colonel Canham radios divisional headquarters. Pointe du Hoc is secure. Of the 225 men from the 2nd Ranger Battalion who land at Pointe du Hoc on the morning of June 6, 1944, fewer than 75 remain fit for duty by the end of the battle. The cost of the operation is severe. Across the battalion, 77 Rangers are killed in action. A further 152 are wounded, many seriously. Another 38 are listed as missing in the days that follow. Some are presumed dead, their bodies never recovered from the shattered cliffs and cratered fields. The figures reflect the extraordinary intensity of the fighting at both Pointe du Hoc and Dog Green sector of Omaha Beach. The battalion suffers over 70% casualties during the first phase of Operation Overlord. Among the wounded is Lieutenant Colonel James E. Rudder, commander of the 2nd Ranger Battalion. He is struck twice during the battle, but continues to lead from the front. For his leadership and gallantry under fire, Rudder is later awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. 13 other Rangers also received the Distinguished Service Cross for their actions during the assault on Pointe du Hoc. Their citations reflect individual acts of exceptional bravery under relentless enemy fire, often carried out in isolation or under extreme duress. In recognition of the battalion's extraordinary performance in capturing and holding the vital cliff position against repeated counterattacks, the 2nd Ranger Battalion is awarded the Presidential Unit Citation. German casualties are harder to determine. Most defenders of the Battalion 3, 726 Grenadier Regiment either flee during the initial bombardment or are captured. Estimates suggest 35 to 50 Germans are killed on or near the point, and around 40 taken prisoner. Many others retreat inland or are killed in later engagements as American forces push south. And that concludes today's episode. By the evening of June 8th, Force A has endured 2 days of relentless combat, isolation, and uncertainty. From the moment their landing craft crashed into the surf, through the climb up the shattered cliffs, to the search for the missing guns and the brutal defense of the point, the Rangers fought against confusion, exhaustion, and overwhelming odds. They destroyed the battery that threatened Omaha and Utah. They held the highway position until forced back. They resisted counterattack after counterattack, and even when cut apart, surrounded, or overrun, they refused to break. By the time relief finally reached them, fewer than 100 men remained able to bear arms. The cost was staggering. Force A had been reduced by more than half. Yet their mission was accomplished. The guns at Pointe du Hoc never fired on the beaches of Normandy. This was the story of Force A during the assault on Pointe du Hoc. In our next episode, we turn to Force B, landing west of Omaha Beach at Pointe de la Percée, and to the desperate fight to secure the flanks of the invasion. In the last episode, Episode 5, Ranger Force C's Overland Push, will follow Major Max Schneider and his battalion as they advance along the bluffs, clearing German strongpoints and racing to link up with Force A. To explore more, including photographs, maps, original documents, and the full list of sources behind this series, visit www.worldwar2-sif.com. Again, among the most valuable works we drew on are Allied Intelligence and the Cover-Up at Pointe du Hoc by historian Gary Stern, D-Day Cover-Up at Pointe du Hoc, the history of the 2nd and 5th U.S. Army Rangers, 1st May to 10th June 1944, also researched and written by Stern, and the Cover-Up at Omaha Beach, Maisie Battery and the U.S. Rangers, another of Stern's major studies. We also relied on Smashing Hitler's Guns, the Rangers at Pointe du Hoc, D-Day 1944, by military historian Stephen J. Zaloga. Together, these works provide both the broad picture and the fine detail behind the Rangers' role in Normandy. They, along with many other sources, have guided our research for this episode. Remember, these stories remind us that the fate of entire campaigns often rested on the shoulders of small, elite units, those who led from the front, striking hard and holding fast in the face of overwhelming odds. Thank you for listening to the Special Forces in World War II podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. Your support helps us continue to bring you more stories of courage, daring, and the unsung heroes of World War II. Be sure to tune in next time as we dive into yet another remarkable operation that helped shape the outcome of the war. Until then, keep your wits sharp, your courage steady, and remember, sometimes the most incredible victories come from the unlikeliest of places. See you in the next episode. I'm your host, Michael Wires, signing off. And that concludes this mission briefing, fellow warriors of knowledge. We've navigated through the trenches of information, delving deep into the battlefields of history. As we wrap up this episode in our campaign for understanding, remember that knowledge is your most potent weapon. Stay vigilant and keep sharpening your intellectual arsenal. We'll rendezvous again for another episode, continuing our relentless pursuit of enlightenment. Until then, keep your mind sharp, your curiosity burning, and your determination unwavering. Simultaneously, you are hereby alerted to our outposts on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, fortifying our information dissemination. Should you possess any pertinent intelligence to bolster our mission, transmit your findings with no hesitation. Your contributions shall be prominently acknowledged within the operational archives. Furthermore, for those prepared to provide substantial reinforcement, navigate to our Patreon forward base and enlist. Your support is integral to sustaining our forward thrust. Carry forth the legacy. Dismissed.